If you are anything like me, you're probably right about now looking for any new tips on how to become a lot more productive and useful with your time for the new year coming or just in general. And like many others, I find that my main focus is surrounded around how many things I could check off my list in the shortest amount of time rather than implementing so many different beautiful parts of our deen that have been tested and tried for thousands of years without fail. I will be the first one to tell you that there is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to become more productive in terms of your fulfillment in the dunya, whether it's driving a certain car, making a certain amount of money, advancing in your career. Listen, we all have what we want, right? However, I'm sure that you will find, just as I did, that when you put as much energy, if not even more energy, when it comes to enriching yourself in the same exact way that our prophets and their companions have done, you get full fulfillment internally, and after that, you will also get the dunya. So you're killing two birds with one stone if you think about it. There's a quote that puts so much into perspective for me. It reads, "When you run after the hereafter, the dunya will pursue you because you are pursuing Allah." Food for thought. With that being said, here are my 7 tips for having the best year possible filled with barakah. Let's go. Tip number 1, intentions. Guys, I cannot speak on this tip enough. Y'all know that Native Dean song, "Are my intentions alright?" Listen, if you know, you know, okay? But whenever I think about intentions, I think about that song. But I find that it's so easy for us to lose focus on what we do and why we do it. But subhanAllah, we get rewarded based on our intention, guys. And the beautiful thing about Islam is the fact that it doesn't even have to be like it's specifically ibadah that we're doing. It could be me, I don't know, putting litter in my cat's box, okay? Me being intentful behind whatever I do, Allah makes it a point to reward us for that. When we can actually sit down with ourselves and realize and think, why am I doing whatever I'm doing? You know, our life and our day will be filled with a lot more purpose, and having purpose is a lot better than doing things robotically. Because think about it, what is the opposite of being, intentive? You're aimless. You have no aim. You're throwing things in the air. You're like throwing rocks in the air. Okay, but in all seriousness, I find myself that when I become a lot more intentional about my day, I get so many more things done because I could understand why I'm doing it. Like the thought of it alone in the back of my head of why I'm doing it allows me to have a lot more clarity and allows me to also become a lot more present in whatever I do. Moving on to tip number 2, make yourself a plan. Listen, guys, it cannot be said enough that the people who do not plan to fail. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ, like that ayah just comes to mind. Like, where are we going? Okay, what are we doing with our lives? Whatever you plan for, you will take seriously. One thing I love planning is my year. I write every single thing down on what I plan to accomplish, and then I divide everything up into months, months into weeks, and then weeks into individual days to make it really easy and, bite-sized amounts. That, of course, is a different video, but if you could at least start with your goals and where you see yourself, and along with a plan on how you can execute it, that is the first step to getting something done. All right, so my third tip for a barakah-filled year is getting up for tahajjud prayer. Guys, if you are saying you want something so bad, I do not care what it is, whatever it is, if you're saying you want it really bad and you're not getting up for tahajjud consistently to pray for it, do you really want it? Ask yourself, do you really want it? I'm asking myself too, do I really want it? Probably not if I'm not getting up for tahajjud, because Allah gave us so many opportunities to get whatever it is we want if we just reach out, if we just take that one step. Allah comes down the last third of the night asking his servant, whoever wants something from him, here he is to hear it. Whoever is asking for forgiveness, here he is to give it, So utilizing this time as often as you can will definitely be a game changer when it comes to changing the substance and the quality of your day. I find that when I start off my day praying tahajjud prayer, I'm not even talking about staying up for hours, like literally 10 minutes right before Fajr comes in, I feel like my day has so much more blessings in it versus if I were to just sleep through it. A hadith that truly motivates me to wake up and pray during this time talks about how tahajjud prayer is a habit of the righteous people. So from whatever time, the righteous people are usually the ones that are getting up and praying tahajjud. So that just makes me want to get up because I want to be in that number, okay? Like I want to be one of those people. Tip number 4, have a connection with the Quran. Guys, I gotta say, this is just one of those tips that will be of so much benefit to you if you're somebody that truly ponders on what you read. This is where intention comes in. For the longest time, the Quran has simply been a book to me. And it's so weird to say, but it's just a book that you read, you memorize, you put it down, and that's it. But when you actually read the meaning behind the Quran, you find that every single thing written is something that you can apply to your life directly. It's so beautiful, guys. Like, there's so many ayahs that I stumbled upon, and I'm like, wow, like, this was written for me. This ayah was written for me. It's so easy to look at the stories in the Quran as simply that, stories. But when you think about it, these stories were written for a reason. Like, how many prophets were there? There were thousands of prophets, but yet how many prophets were mentioned in the Quran? And how many pieces of their life was mentioned in the Quran? SubhanAllah, this also goes to show how perfect Allah is. I know this is kind of besides the point, but the fact that He handcrafted and put in specific information because He knows that regardless of the time you're in, it's gonna have a benefit. Only if you allow it to be, the Quran will serve as a guidance, and you will see that in your daily life if you actually reflect on the ayahs that you read, not just reading it, but actually being intentful behind whatever it is that you're reciting. An ayah in Surah Muhammed, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Do they not then reflect on the Quran, or are there locks upon their hearts? SubhanAllah. The Quran was meant for reflection. It was like, it was not meant to just be, a pretty book you have and you put it down. Like, SubhanAllah, it's been like that for many years for me. And alhamdulillah, I now reflect on it and I find that it guides me in more ways than I could count. Tip number 5, dhikr/remembrance. I love that saying, remember me and I will remember you. Dhikr constantly puts you in a state of remembering Allah. And what better thing could you be doing with your time than to remember Allah, And the beautiful thing about this is that it can be in so many different settings. It's not like you have to be sitting down or you have to be in sujood or you have to be in whatever, position. You can literally just be having the most random day and just saying subhanallah or alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, whatever you're saying, that is nourishing your soul. As you're doing whatever it is you're already going to be doing. This has been a consistent habit of mine for the past year, and alhamdulillah, I find that it makes me feel a lot closer to Allah, even in times where I'm not doing anything necessarily tied to the deen. Doing this could actually be the cause of so many good things coming your way, whether it's through people, opportunities, as well as deterring away a lot of evil things from happening to you as well. You honestly could never lose. It's a win-win situation with dhikr, which also leads into my second point, which is making it a consistent habit to think well of Allah, thinking good thoughts of Allah, and in return, He will give you good things. Allah tells us that He is whatever we think of Him. So if we think of Allah as a Lord that is amazing and a Lord that loves us, that is exactly what Allah is going to be for us. And likewise, if we think of Allah as a Lord that only wants punishment for us and only wants bad for us, that is exactly what He's going to be for us. If you operate with the mentality that everything that happens in your life is a good thing, then you are ultimately going to be the winner, because Allah tells us that every single thing that happens to us is good. And of course, this is easier said than done. It's easy to say when you're in a situation where you can smile and you're happy and you have no worries. But when you think about these situations when you have nothing, Allah tells us that wonders is the affair of the believer. I don't know the whole hadith word for word, but it goes along the lines of whatever is good for him, he's happy, he says alhamdulillah. And if something bad happens, they are patient. So always think good of Allah, because Allah only has good planned for you. Last but not least, tie your camel. This has been the consistent theme for me in my year 2023, and I'm sure it will be in 2024. If you go out of your way to work with ihsan and just do the best that you can, know that Allah is going to reward that for you. Now, whether it's going to come tomorrow, if it's going to come the day you made the dua, if it's going to come in years, or if it comes on the day of judgment, that's not for us to decide, nor is it for us to be concerned about. But the fact that we did our part alone, we should know that, rest assured, Allah's going to take care of the rest. I think a lot of the time as well, because we feel that we did tie our camel, so Allah kind of owes us a little bit of an explanation, or even directly whatever it is that we prayed for or whatever it is that we're working towards. And life will teach you that it doesn't always work that way. Whether you are starting a business, learning a new language, whatever it is that you're doing and working towards, your effort is never in vain. And if you made dua for it, if you're working day and night for it, by all means, it's yours. You just have to wait for it. And of course, that probably is usually the hardest thing to do, is to wait for it. But anyways, guys, these are my tips for 2024 on how we can all have, inshallah, hopefully, a very productive and barakah filled year. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.